and shocking, this is going to shock you, but they are not aware of the fact that driver-related charges impact their CVOR.
Driver-related charges impact your CVOR. That is Jodi Burness from Burness Paralegal, and we have the pleasure of having Jodi on our 20th episode as a podcast. So with that, let's get right to it. Welcome to the Dawg on It Trucking Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Harris, Safety Dawg. And when it comes to trucking safety, the Dawg is on it. Please, if you would show your appreciation for the podcast by leaving a thumbs up, a comment, a rating, it would help me so much. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you. Now, let's get on with the show. Jodi, welcome to the Dawg on It Trucking Podcast. Thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thank you, Chris, very much for the invitation.
Oh, you're always welcome to come here. I've heard you speak. Well,
don't say that.
I've heard you speak so many times. God, where were we most recently? I think you were a guest when I last saw you at the IHSA building.
Yes, that's right. That's right. The annual conference.
Oh, is that okay? See, I'd forgotten what it was, but that was the last time we had spoken. But I've heard you speak several times at the truck drivers. General
meetings, staff meetings, or the Fleet Safety Council monthly meetings. Yeah,
that's what it is. Fleet Safety Council monthly meetings. And Charlie.
Chapter. Woo-hoo.
Are you a member of the Hamilton chapter?
I am.
See?
I don't know. I don't even remember how I ended up there, to be honest, because I'm from London. How I ended up in Grimsby, I have no idea. It's been so long, but I think they were the only ones that extended their arms, and I showed up, and then I just never left.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
In one of our episodes just before you, we had Charlie Charlamblis from IHSA on, and he was talking about the Driver Safety Council. So,
yes, great organization.
It is. Tell us about Burness Paralegal.
So Burness Paralegal.
I was going to say, how long have you been in business and that type of stuff?
So I've been a paralegal for 23 years. Prior to Burness Paralegal, I was E&B paralegal, but through licensing with the Law Society, it was a complicated transition, but we adopted Burness Paralegal as the company name. But I have been representing truck drivers and carriers for over 2 decades now, and it is my absolute passion. I am from the trucking industry. My father was a truck driver, my brother's a truck driver, my aunt's a truck driver. Trucking is in my blood, but I was never going to drive a truck. So naturally, my love of the law was just a very comfortable fit with trucking, and many years ago I had a chance to go into a courtroom and represent a carrier on a push rod charge, which is the bulk of many of our charges. But I won that charge, and I was hooked. And it's been a hell of a ride.
That's awesome. So I didn't know that you were so closely tied to the trucking industry.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we joke and say that I grew up inside a truck. I mean, my father drove for Better Beef for a number of years between Toronto and Montreal. And I mean, I was in that bunk any chance I got. I mean, that was a treat, you know. And so, it's an industry that I know inherently from the inside out. And coming from the legal vantage point, it's just another component that I wanted to know a lot about. I've had wonderful opportunities in those years. Everybody from carriers extending the opportunity to go and, get under trucks and get on trucks and, see different types of loads. So it's every day is a learning opportunity.
That's huge. And let's change subjects a little bit. You mentioned that you were fighting a pushrod charge. That was your first case. Why should a carrier fight a charge?
So realistically, there's many reasons, but a carrier will want to fight a charge primarily to protect that CVOR. So, you know, a ticket for a push rod charge is $400, and they are going to spend a considerable amount more than that to go through the fighting process. But the reason you want to do it is because it's your only opportunity retroactively to protect your CVOR. Everything else, collisions, inspections, those are all proactive approaches. The only thing you can react to is conviction points. The only way you get rid of conviction points is by mitigating or eliminating them in a courtroom.
Yeah. Or, well, there's, yeah. Once you're charged, the only way to get kind of uncharged is to fight the ticket.
That's it. That there is no other mechanism. And that's why I say, people say, oh, well, you know, I want to fight collision points. That process is so complicated, and the chances of you being successful are so minimal that, in my view, is not where you want to spend your money. People say, I want to fight inspection points. Well, there is no mechanism to fight inspection points. So you might as well forget about that. And what's left? Conviction points. And how do you defend against those, or how do you prevent them? Well, I mean, there is the training component, so you don't get charged. But if the charge happens, then the only way you can do anything about that is to defend against that charge. And whether it be a ticket or a summons, you're going to have to eventually go into a courtroom and do something constructive to disprove or mitigate that allegation.
Well, plus, as you know, the collisions are worth 40% of the CVOR overall violation rate. Convictions are also worth 40 big ones, and then inspections are only worth 20. So, you know, myself, I wouldn't spend the money to fight inspections when they're only worth 20. But my God, to help get rid of like 40% is huge.
It's huge. I mean, it's almost half of your overall violation rate. And I think the unfortunate thing is that a lot of carriers don't understand the numbers. They don't understand the system of the CVOR, and I don't necessarily blame them. It is a very complicated system. It was one thing prior to 2007. It became something else after that date, and we've all been playing catch-up. And the information is not readily available. And so you can defend the charge on your own, obviously. That is a constitutional right. But going into a courtroom, you are at a disadvantage, right? If you are self-represented, that judge isn't there to help you, that prosecutor's not there to help you, most certainly that clerk isn't there to help you, and you are assuming the law one way without recognizing or being able to see around the corner, and you're at a complete disadvantage. And so there are times where, regardless of what you do, at least you're taking the step to defend yourself, or defend your company, or have that driver defend him or herself. But at the end of the day, if you're going to get to that point, at least hire competent representation so that you are learning from the experience. Because at the end of the day, the person that's representing you should be preparing you so that you don't need them. That's, in my view, that is my philosophy.
Well, many carriers hire paralegals so that they don't have to learn how to defend themselves. And I'm kind of in that belief pattern, because many carriers, you already mentioned, don't understand the CVOR, for instance. I think that's fundamental in a safety department or for a small carrier to understand that mechanism. And then why should I understand the court thing? You know, I want to train my drivers not to get tickets. And when it happens, it's going to happen. But when it happens, I'd rather hire you, somebody like you that is extremely skilled. I mean, gosh, you said you got 26 years of experience? 23 years? That's a lot of experience. If I went into court myself, who do you think is going to do a better job?
Well, it's not just that, Chris. It's when I say being properly represented, obviously that person should know all the consequences that you're facing, right? So that, for a carrier or a commercial driver, it's the CVOR system. So they should know the system in and out. They should know how many points are at risk, if you're going to mitigate the charge, what those points look like. But at the same time, know what those points will do to you. Know how to calculate your overall violation rate on a theoretical equation. And that's, I think, what a lot of people are missing. on top of all of that, when I talk about competent representation, I'm not just saying I'm going to take your file, you're going to be kept in the dark, I'm going to go into the courtroom, wave a magic wand, come out the other end, and you think I'm amazing. That may be a result, but that's, in my view, you've missed the mark in terms of what you should be getting from that representation. I like to say, we joke all the time here, that our motto is education through litigation, because I got to drive those highways too. And if part of that is making sure that you, as a carrier, as my client, are apprised of how that charge happened, what the law really is, and what you should have done to avoid the charge in the first place, then I think I'm doing my part to keep the road safe. And, right, I mean, we deal with very serious charges, such as, fatalities, wheel-off, unsafe vehicle, and then we deal with other mechanical and load security issues, et cetera. I mean, anything from the Highway Traffic Act. But those biggies, the unsafe, those are the ones that are going to present the greatest learning opportunity. Those are the ones that you want your legal representative to tell you, okay, this is exactly how the charge happened. I think it would blind you, Chris, to know how many carriers I will ask on the phone on a daily and say, okay, tell me about the charge. And they will give me a summary of what the charge is and how they got there. And then I get the disclosure however months later, and I compare my notes to what the disclosure is. And I'm thinking to myself, they had no idea. They had no idea the severity of the situation. They had no idea how they got there. They completely misconstrued what was told to them. And again, I'm not saying that the carrier misunderstood. It could very well be the officer misinformed them. And so, I mean, it's a very complicated process. The law is designed that way, right? We don't want people comfortable in a courtroom, right? Because that makes you want to come back. So again, jokingly though, the education through litigation philosophy looks at preparing the carrier to change, right? So the CVOR system tells you where your weaknesses are, right? Because that's what that CVOR does. It tells you where the trends are, where your missteps are, what drivers, not doing or doing. And then you take that post-event, then you take the charge, and I combine those two, and I say, okay, look, guys, you've got an inspection issue. You've got drivers that are not doing inspections. That's how you ended up with a pushrod charge. You've got drivers that aren't checking their brakes, et cetera. How do you now? Then the client says, well, now what do I do? Well, I put them in touch with people like you, and then they develop training systems, et cetera. At the end of the day, the goal is so that I never get a call again from those people. That's the goal. And I know that sounds like a terrible business model, but until trucking is no longer an industry, I'm fine. So anyway, that's just, that's sort of a well-rounded idea behind our philosophy.
And that's really good. I don't, it's because I don't work for a carrier any longer.
Right.
I don't have the chance to appear in court anymore. Yay! And I don't want to. But you're right. A lot of people don't understand the whole process. And when I say, why aren't you fighting your charges? Well, God, it costs a lot of money. I said, yeah, it's going to cost you money. But if you hire the right paralegal, and tell me if you agree with what I'm telling my clients, you hire the right paralegal and they will either know what to plead guilty to, because this charge may be at 6 points, but if you negotiate and you pleaded guilty to something else, it's either a lesser amount of points or something. Or sometimes you can legally defer the case coming in front of a judge.
Absolutely.
Delaying. And again, people don't understand the advantage of delaying it.
And I think that out in the industry, there's also this mentality, and I've seen this hundreds of times, where I get a new client and they adopt this mentality that, well, I don't want to make any waves. I don't want to be seen as an instigator. I just want the ministry to think that I'm a good carrier and I pay my tickets. But the reality is the adverse is true. The Ministry of Transportation wants you challenging your charges. And the reason they want you doing that is because, A, they understand how the system works, but more importantly, they also understand the value of litigation. They, too, are in the same philosophy boat that you will learn by entering into a courtroom. And I mean, I've had lots of carriers, where we've got, safety representatives coming from, various departments, and they come into court and it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for them to see what happens when they don't do their job. And that, again, takes a chapter out of the philosophy book of education through litigation. And this is all we have. I mean, it's power through knowledge. And the less you know, the worse off you're going to be. And so you certainly can't approach the trucking industry. I don't know if you can approach any industry, but I think trucking is at the top of the list with, the ostrich approach. You cannot put your head in the sand. You have to be hungry for knowledge. And anybody who's not is not going to have a CVOR for long. That's my opinion, but I'm paid to have opinions, so I'm allowed to do that.
Well, and you're absolutely right. I mean, you've probably been to St. Paul Street. I've been to St. Paul Street on both interviews and show cause hearings. They're not pleasant, and they usually happen, well, the show cause hearings we know generally happen when you're over 100%.
Right.
But the audits happen when you're over 50% of your overall violation.
That's right.
So,
and then you've got the ministry breathing down your neck. That's one part. Okay, now how do you deal with that at the same time that you've got an insurance, your insurance renewal is up, and they're looking at your CVOR and they're going, either A, you're uninsurable, or B, it's cost prohibitive to put a truck on the road because your insurance costs are so high because your CVOR is in the toilet. And I think that's something that a lot of carriers know too late.
well,
But if you've arrived at St. Paul Street and the ministry's had enforcement office, too little, too late, in my view. I mean, it's very, very difficult to come back from that. It's difficult to come back from that for a number of reasons, but I think the most notable is that bad carriers, and that's the problem with the warning letter, right? The warning letter is the flag. You're supposed to say, okay, everybody stop what we're doing. We've got a problem. We need to fix it. They don't want you telling them about how you're going to just fix the problem. And a lot of people don't take that step and then end up having to answer to the ministry while the insurance company's in the background going, oh, by the way, your premiums have increased, by 25 or 30%.
For those who are listening, if you don't know, the warning letter Jodi's talking about comes out when your overall violation rate goes above 35%. And it's kind of the first intervention level, I think, where all of a sudden they're going to start paying more attention to you at the scales. They've warned you to start looking at your CVOR system. And then at 50%, I think you're going to see an increase for sure of activity at the scales because they're getting ready to come in and knock on your door.
That's right. But now it's important to note, though, Chris, that the warning letter is not only reserved for the excess of 35% of your overall violation rate, it is also now something standardized for Ministry of Transportation for critical events. So if you've had an impound, that qualifies as a critical event. You've had a fatality or you've had a significant damage accident, that's going to trigger a warning. So, and we're seeing them more and more. And I've got clients that are, they have a 12%, their eyes on the prize, right? Overall violation rate. That's the only thing they think about because they've listened to me well enough. But then they go, oh, I have a warning letter. I thought I was supposed to be over 35. And I say, no, there's obviously a foundation of purpose from the ministry doing that, but that's something that we're seeing almost standardized now. And so it's something that a lot of carriers need to be aware that letter is coming. And obviously it goes in your file. So should you be that actor that does find themselves in an interview situation, guess what's the first thing they're going to take out of that file? It's going to be that warning letter.
Well, I mean, have you represented, or not represented, but have you been at carriers when the audits are going on?
I have. It's many, many years ago, and you have to appreciate that could thrust me into the situation where I'm now a witness for my client, and I can't represent my client and be a witness for them. So I step back, and so I think that a lot of them are now prepared, right, through people like you, like the system that you're developing. A lot more people are educated as to what happens in an audit, what your obligations are, what your rights are. And I'm seeing a very different number of charges, different types of charges, and a different mentality that goes along with the audit process from the carrier and the ministry perspective.
What do you mean by different types and different amount of charges? Are they going up, down, which way?
Yeah. Well, it depends on your jurisdiction. So it's right. I mean, different parts of the province are going to see different auditors, and they will have a different motivation. And so there's going to be numbers will be different, and the charge types will be different. If I had to give an average, I would say, of course, still hours of service is exactly where the ministry heads. That is the majority of charges that we see. So it's going to be definitely not so much over hours anymore, but definitely the paperwork that attaches to the hours of service. We see a lot of those types of charges. And we are seeing a lot of audits that are conducted as a result of complaints versus carriers that are exceeding 50%. So that's something, I think it's coming down to manpower. Focus on the guys that you know already have a problem. Somebody has already reported them as having a problem. They know exactly where to look. And so we're talking about man hours are reduced and charges are ultimately laid, and they're very focused. Yeah. It may be just one driver that they're looking at.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that they are, I don't know that they're doing fewer. I would imagine they're probably doing fewer audits as well, because you've mentioned manpower. I think we're we're taping this during COVID-19, the pandemic, and I really wonder how, this is one of the things in the back of my head all the time, as our governments, both federal and provincial, have been, I think, very generous to us all financially during this. I wonder what the heck it's going to do to our tax structure later on, and how it's going to affect things like the ministry and their manpower and their ability to do their job.
Right. I mean, remember, just before COVID-19 was a thing, there was this looming threat of an MTO strike, right? That was something that had been publicized. That is, a lot of officers were talking about that. And obviously COVID kind of, hushed everybody. But it's, these are realities. These are definite concerns, I think, in the enforcement industry. And it'll be interesting to see where the balance of resources ends up. Is it going to be more audits? Because I don't know. And I've been doing, defending carriers from audit charges for as long as I've been doing this. And I can honestly say that it doesn't create the behavioral change that the ministry thinks it does. But roadside inspections do, right? Because of all the downtime and the involvement of the driver. There's just so much more to it that the catalyst for change, because that's really what they're trying to do, they being the ministry. So the catalyst for change, I think, is much more prevalent in the roadside charge versus the audit charge. The audit charge comes down to numbers and money, and that's not effective.
And the other part of an audit, unfortunately, is the rating. And right now with insurance, the outcome of an audit is, I believe, critical in this hard insurance market, because if you get a conditional rating, it's very tough to get a renewal nowadays.
It is. And I mean, I have one carrier that I dealt with this morning, and I mean, he's in the low 20s. I want to say 22% OVR, and I mean, not bad considering the commodity that he hauls. But he's conditional, and he's conditional because he failed an audit. But he failed an audit something like 4 years ago, and and he didn't realize the value of what that conditional rating did for him. He's thinking, I'm not worried about it. So what? It can sit there. I've had the same contracts I've had for 10 years. They're not going anywhere. And I said to him, you're paying a premium because you have that safety rating. You're paying more money to your insurance company than you ordinarily would if you would just pass an audit and become satisfactory, because he's ready to go, but he doesn't see the value in it. And I mean, you and I are on the same page about this, and that is that nobody should be inviting the ministry in to do an audit unless they've cleaned their house. And that means you have somebody come in and do an independent audit before you invite them in, because I think the proof is in the pudding, meaning every charge I've ever seen or every audit I've ever seen where carriers have invited the ministry, the scrutiny level is so much more intense because the ministry is expecting your house to be clean. And the minute they find something, it's a mushroom cloud.
Yep. Oh, sorry. I just hit the wrong button. Let me get back there. Regarding audits, you'd mentioned that you believe the most frequent charges are in the hours of service area now?
Now and have always been.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because obviously with the event of ELDs, it should make it easier for the carrier to do their own auditing and make sure that they're in compliance. Are you finding that it's working?
So, to be honest, we are not seeing a lot of carriers that have committed to the ELDs fully getting audited, right? And when I say that, so you've got a lot of carriers that are going to have got this hybrid ELD paper system going on, and that's a recipe for disaster because it's confusing and it's tough to follow. As an in-house audit, if you're trying to audit your own documents, you've got the ELD system, you've got your papers, it's a disaster. So that, in my view, is low-hanging fruit, right? The ministry knows this because you've gone through a scale. The minute you go through an inspection station, you've opened the book to the ministry, and the ministry is creating a record on that CVIR, and that is all being tallied, and that helps the ministry come audit time. I think it will come to an end. I think that the hours of service audit charges for those carriers that are still either hybrid or fully paper eventually will come to an end with full ELD. But I don't know if I don't know where the end is.
What have you heard, just out of curiosity, have you heard when ELDs might be mandated for Canada or for Ontario?
So the date was June of 2022.
Right.
The holdup, of course, is how do you make, or how do we select one provider over the other? What is the process to say, is it ABC ELD, or is it 1, 2, 3 ELD that's going to be the selected provider? And that is the holdup, right? We don't want to go the American system. We know that doesn't work.
That's a disaster. Sorry, any American listeners, but the ELD system down there.
No.
You guys
so that's our. Yeah.
It really didn't work.
Right. Expletive. Yes, I know. So that's the holdup.
Yeah, and I've heard that not StatsCan. Anyways, the people that are going to be monitoring the ELD systems, they've got the framework now for how to approve an ELD system. And I heard that they're actually open to accepting ELD systems now and starting to evaluate them. So
that's interesting. And I mean, we see a lot of carriers that are subscribing to the ELD system, and you're taking old dogs, teaching them new tricks. You got old drivers. I feel for them. But you have a lot of enforcement. Not so much MTO. I want to say that there's a good educational format for the MTO, especially in the past 12 to 16 months for ELDs. But regional and provincial enforcement is not ready, and they don't know what they're doing. And so, unfortunately, you see a lot of illegitimate charges, meaning that they've simply made a mistake in the interpretation of the legislation. And I don't stomach those charges very well. I mean, the trucking industry is tough enough, and then you bring that into the mix, and I become quite passionate. And so you might want to mute my mic because Yeah. So I get excited when I see those types of charges, and that's always what you see in a transition period, right? The same applied to SPIF. So when the SPIF rules came in, you had everybody thinking that it was one way, and you had, so-called experts, and we're still going through that. So change is not easy.
Now, SPIF, do you remember what the acronym is for those people who, like myself, I know it has to do with the self-steering axles, but what is...
Right, so the SPIF stands for Safe, Productive, Infrastructure Friendly.
There. See, I've forgotten.
I got it. Oh, I had to dig deep. But that's what it stands for, and again, it is a confusing piece of legislation, a good piece of legislation, but confusing. There are legislative gaps, just as there are with any piece of legislation that's new, and we're still trying to work them out. I mean, think about it. That's been since 2005,
yeah.
Right? And you still say SPIF, and people go, "What? What are you talking about?"
Well, unless you had multi-axle trailers greater than a tandem, you may not even know what the heck we're talking about, really.
That's true, yeah.
So one last thing, you mentioned to me, you don't fight, you can't win.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
That'll take us right back to the beginning of this, and people. I'll answer the question. If you don't fight, you can't win. The court system is much like the lottery, right? You can't win the lottery if you don't buy the ticket. And it's much the same thing when you're looking at defending a charge. There is no possibility for you to walk out with any change in your current situation if you don't take the opportunity to defend against the charge. And it's true. You may not win. That's absolutely true. I mean, the burden is on the prosecution to prove that charge beyond a reasonable doubt. But some of these charges are quite simplistic in nature, and it doesn't take much to get there. Having said that, in my view, if that charge carries points, you must defend the charge, regardless of what you perceive to be your defense at the early stage of deciding whether you should fight it or not. Because I would tell you 50% of the cases where we don't know what the defense is, come the disclosure time, we've got one. And, and it's viable. And whether it be evidentiary based, in other words, I've got witnesses I can call, I've got cross-examination of witnesses that may produce something, or we proceed on a more technical defense, meaning there's something wrong in the law and we can argue that. So the reality is the law is on the prosecution side, that is the truth, but at the end of the day, take the opportunity. You're going to learn something with the right legal representation. The end of the day, the ministry is watching, and when it comes time, you'll have something to say about the efforts that you've taken to at least mitigate your CVOR. That's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, and I think, if people take one thing away from this interview with you, and I thank you very much for that, is you've got to learn how to protect your CVOR. Because, to say it will put you out of business right now, either the insurance industry or the MTO, if it gets bad enough. And conditional ratings right now with insurance are just unacceptable. And so
it is. And I mean, and the reality is that the ministry, of course, is aware of all the carriers out there we say conditional, but of course that there are carriers with trucks on the road that are unsatisfactory. Yeah. That's shocking. The ministry, of course, has to focus on them first. I think there is a prioritization within the ministry structure of who they're going to focus on when. But don't assume that just because you have a low overall violation rate that the ministry can't come calling. There are many, many factors of consideration. But a lot of they are not aware of the fact that driver-related charges impact their CVOR. They think that, we don't need to defend the driver charge because he's on his own or she's on her own. And I think to myself, are you crazy? I mean, that charge carries 5 CVOR points, and you're just going to let them go out there defending themselves, right? Because many many drivers can't afford legal representation. They're just going to let them dictate what happens to their CVOR. And I've used this analogy often. I said, letting a driver dictate what happens and you caring only about you is much like trying to cut the grass when the house is on fire. Like, what are you doing? You've got a very caustic situation that can only be cured by focusing on the whole problem, and a lot of carriers miss that mark. And you know what? Even if you show them on their CVOR, they're very reticent to believe you. And I believe it's because way back when that wasn't a thing, right? I mean, I can't remember the CVOR when I very first started. I mean, it really caught my attention in 05, 06, 07. That's when I really started to delve into it and understand it. But prior to that, it wasn't something the ministry really kept tabs on, and it wasn't something that consequently carriers cared much about. And there was a residual effect of that even today.
Well, and I think it's just more recent. In the last 5 years, insurance carriers have cared about it, but in the last 2, there are companies out there who have, I'm sure you know that insurance companies have what they call filed rules with the government. And some of them have filed rule saying we will not insure a conditional carrier.
That's right.
Which is devastating. Anyways,
yeah.
Sorry, to wrap this up, because we're getting...
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just been a great...
Favorite topic in the whole world. We could do this podcast for 3 days.
What else is on your mind before we close out?
I think you know, in a summary sentence, carriers should seek out free legal consultation, because that is, in my view, the least expensive and most effective thing that they can do as part of the learning process. So you got to charge. Don't assume you know everything. Seek out competence and a free consultation, because anybody worth their salt will offer that to you. And from there, that's going to give you or propel you in one direction or the other. I mean, we've got a lot of carriers that spend a lot of money defending charges that don't matter, right? And then they fail to recognize the ones that do. And that's, in my view, the free consultation is a stepping stone to moving forward.
Well, and credit to you. Every time I've been with a carrier and we've sent something over to you, we always get, in a timely fashion, a quote back with the defense, and you know, so the carrier can make a legit decision on what they want to do. Sorry?
Fully informed decision. That is our motto. Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate that, and often carriers will come to me because I do the CVOR calculations, and I can say, okay, if you get convicted, this is what it's going to do, and I can take a look at that for them. So.
Absolutely, and that's part of it, right? It's just it's the risk-reward balance, and so many carriers are in the dark, and I get it. I understand it. I mean, I couldn't imagine the logistical components to the trucking business, the business of trucking, and then you add the ministry component to what you're trying to do. It's a lot, and it does require properly trained, competent people helping, but you have to know you need the help to begin with.
Yeah, it's so tough to make a profit right now. There's so many things to keep, as a trucking company owner, to keep their eye on. CVOR
Absolutely.
And charges, and that's only one thing. It's tough right now, Jodi, and I mean it's been tough for
years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It hasn't been much fun. I'm hoping after COVID's over, maybe the fun will return.
Yeah, really.
Well, it's unfortunate, but I'm predicting that some trucking companies won't make it through. I don't know if you saw the news today, the day that we're taping this, Hertz, the car rental company in the States, has filed for bankruptcy. So,
I believe it.
And that's because all of a sudden there's no rentals. You know,
aren't going. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's many companies, and trucking companies are highly leveraged organizations generally with big loans because of the price of the equipment. And there's not a lot of profit.
Absolutely. I mean, and then you've got equipment issues, you've got human resource issues. I mean, drivers, God love them, they are a breed, and they're, you know, they're not easy to deal with. And, you know, there's many different types of driver, and, of course, we only see the bad apple. I joke all the time and say I only have innocent clients, but, right. But that's definitely a consideration. These are not machines. They are not machines driving machines, and that's not an easy part to deal with either.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Jodi, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the Dawg on It Trucking 20th episode podcast. So thanks so much. Any last words?
Anybody that needs us, Burness Paralegal is there.
Well, we'll have all your contact info in the show notes below. You can reach out to Jodi at any time. Thanks, Jodi, so much.
All right.
I hope you loved the show as much as I did. Please leave us a like, a thumbs up, a review, a comment, a rating if it is in your heart. Thank you so much. And I do really appreciate your time. And join us again next week for another exciting interview.